So if you have the numbers and you could, read them out to everybody so we could re-sign on.
Yes.
Jesus is up there looking for it. It's probably too late to get up on a board.
Yeah.
Or, can we put it up there now? Just a Word doc or a note?
Read that out to me.
191884 is the user. Password is 146815.
14681.
Yep.
And how do I get this up on the damn screen?
I don't know. Is that the one that's feeding it right now? Go to the Apple menu and mirror. All the way at the left, first row. Or second row, all the way.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, hit mirror, and exactly what's on your screen will go up there. In theory. Oh, okay.
It's not up.
Just repeat it, ask people to write it down.
Well, we need to get this up here anyway. Where the hell's Doug? He knows how to do this. It needs to be in a minute.
Here, for someone.
Are these turned off?
Morning, everybody. Did I wake you up? Somebody's head hurt? Before we really get rolling here, it seems that after a day, you get logged out of the Wi-Fi, and some people are having trouble keeping their connection. And so here, write this down, and if you've lost your packet, I'll read out the username and password again so you can get back. It's the username is 191884. And the password is 146815 to make sure you can all stay connected. User 191884. Password 146815. We've got another really jam-packed day, and in fact, even I think a few more speakers today than we had yesterday. So I hope you guys had some coffee and are ready to listen intently and keep talking as much as you did yesterday. The exchange of info here in this room and in the breakouts was really, really nice to see all of the questions and people jumping into the conversation and taking part and really trying to build those connections that are ongoing and help make us all better, not just from what we take away from this weekend, but what we share and teach each other all of the time. And here to give us a blast of energy, as she always does in the morning, and kick things off properly. Eleanor Sipple, who many of you met yesterday, will keep things moving along. Thank you. What are you gonna? Which one is this? She's gonna talk. She's gonna talk a couple of times today, so I'm not quite sure what the focus of this one is.
So this is, we're going to talk about sales process now. And then just because there was some info that Kelly kept talking about yesterday, and based on the number of folks in the room that have salespeople, I think we're going to do a quick session around 12:30. And that'll be on accountability and managing salespeople and managing sales metrics to ensure that you don't like hire someone and then pay them for 6 months and not get anything out of that, and all of those things that can happen when you embark on hiring salespeople. So does that sound good? Okay. So we'll see where the heck I'm going over here. I don't know. I think now, because Dylan made these comments around energy, I was saying yesterday we ended up here on a panel after lunch, which is, nap time, right? And then, I'm the person who has you first thing in the morning after a Friday night in Chicago. So, come on. Are we having technical difficulties?
Of course.
No. Okay. And do I have a remote? Is that this? Ish? Yeah? And does the remote work? Ish. Okay. All right. So let me see if I can put this somewhere. Okay. I think we're golden now. It is definitely morning. So you're going to hear me talk about being intentional a lot. And I think intentional is a key word around sales. And I've moved everything away from consultative to intentional. And I've done that personally in what I train and what I teach because I believe that folks have taken consultative in sales and they've turned it into making friends. And you don't need friends, you need money. Friends are great, but you need money, right? So we should have an intentional sales process. So today, this morning, we're going to really walk through a lot of the things related to a sales process and an effective sales process. My hope is to give you some tactics and some tools, some phraseology, some things that you can attempt to use to help you move that sales needle faster. And then we'll talk about how to manage your sellers later today. So as we start, I love this quote. To achieve great things, two things are needed: a plan and not quite enough time. Anybody have lots of time in the room to get this business going? Yeah, me neither. And certainly a plan is important, part of being intentional. So as I said, we're going to talk a lot about an effective revenue plan this morning. So let's talk exactly about what a revenue plan looks like so we have some clarity on the front end here. So a revenue plan includes defining who you are. So you need to really understand what your identity is as a business. So you can put that together in a sales story. You can package it, you can take it forward. So really understanding who your business is, what your identity as a business is really important. Who your target audience is. So I'll often ask folks, who's your target audience or who's your core audience? And I'll hear things like, well, we get everybody. We get men, we get women, they're 15 to 85. Okay, seriously, you have a core audience that is the primary audience or the breadth of audience that you have, and everyone else is periphery. If you identify who your target audience is, you can stay really true to your core audience, and those other folks will come on board. But that core audience is what you start building a persona and a message about, and that's who you're selling. Advertisers who are investing in your site are not investing in the fact that you do hyperlocal news. They're investing in the audience that you have and the result that you can deliver them. That's the bottom line. So they may be passionate. They may think what you're doing is great. But ultimately, we're trying to match your audience, the value of your audience, to an advertiser's needs, somebody that they're trying to reach and target. If they're doing that through your news product, great. But they're not going to attract or gain more business because you've got a news product. Does that make sense? I think often there's sort of a misconception around connecting to an advertiser based on the product that we're delivering or what we're doing. So I'm going to stick this in here, I think. Can you all still hear me? You can, right? Yes, okay. So why your audience is of value, and then, of course, what you have to sell. So this is not only what you have, your products. the products that you have on your core site, everything else that you're selling, and you need to understand what your strategy is. Do you have an ad map? Do you know what you have to sell? At sellout, do you know what that's worth? Do you know how much revenue you can produce if somebody is really doing well and selling out your inventory and selling out or selling through the portfolio of products that you offer if you've diversified? These are things that should be part of your revenue plan. They help you calculate whether or not you're going to make money and how much money you are going to make. I've gone through exercises with small publishers where we've looked at the inventory that they've had on the site and where they were starting with selling on the site. And I've said things like, okay, if you sell this out based on where you are, you're going to make $500. Can you live on $500? Does that even pay the expenses on your site? But they hadn't gone through that exercise. So again, an incredibly important factor. And then who your best prospects are. And of course, in prospecting, and we don't have time to get into that this morning, but in prospecting, I think it's incredibly important that you really look at who the best prospects are. So if you understand your core audience, you can match that, define those prospects, get them into a list. I categorize them I categorize them by business category, so I know which categories of business I think have the highest propensity to buy. I also categorize them by spend level. And it's far easier to get money from folks who are already spending money than it is to try to get somebody who isn't investing any money at all to spend money. So just really having a strategy, having a plan, being intentional about who you prospect, also important. And then lastly, how you will execute. And in business, everything's about execution, isn't it? So today we're going to talk particularly about how you execute sales. So big secrets to sales success. Like this should get a drum roll, because this is the answer right here. Yeah, sales activity, a sales process that you can measure back to, and an execution. So these three things lead to revenue success. So folks will often say to me, you know, I had a sales rep and they didn't accomplish anything, they didn't sell anything. And the first place, and there are a couple of you in the room who've already asked me this question, the first place I go to is, what was the activity? How many sales calls were they making? Do you know they were making sales calls? How many? What were they? Because you can have the worst salesperson on the planet, but if they talk to enough people, you're going to get a sale. Now, I'm not advocating for bad salespeople, certainly, but sales is a result of activity. A sales process helps you have better results faster, and all of this is really about measuring and execution, really understanding the execution of sales. So, as I've said, action is the foundational key. And since there are many journalists in the room, I feel it's important to put this statement out there, and that is, imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. Because sales is not perfect. We were at the breakfast table this morning, and I said to a couple of folks, you know, I've been doing sales and marketing the majority of my career, and I still have those should-have moments. I still should on myself. There are still times I get into my car, I leave a call, and I say, oh, God, I should have done this, or why didn't I say that, or I should have done this better. And so that happens. It's never perfect, never. It's not completely predictable. And if I could say this is the exact way to do this, and this will work every time, if I could like give you an exact sales process and then give you the perfect commission plan, I'd be so rich. Right? Yeah, it's, you know, so it really is something that just you have to go out and do, and you have to learn from. So here's the seller's guarantee. You're going to make mistakes. People are going to say no. A lot of people are going to say no. They just do. And you're not going to get every sale that you go after. So I would venture to say that some of you in the room have salespeople or even have done calls yourself, and you've made a call, you had a good conversation, and then you're mad because nothing happened out of that, and it's been one time, and it was one call. So you're not going to get everybody that you talk to. Some folks take a really long time to get on board, and you're going to have to ask people multiple times. So I wanted to share some sales statistics with you to just give you a little insight into what that looks like. Because activity and perseverance in sales, again, we go back to this. This is key. I think the bottom line is one of the biggest takeaways. 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. 5 to 12 times calling on the same person. And you can see why you don't have success with sellers If you look at the top few lines, 48% of salespeople never follow up with a prospect. 25% of salespeople, only 25% make a second contact. 12% of salespeople only make 3 contacts and then they stop. 10% of salespeople make more than 3 contacts. But again, 80% of sales happen between 5 and 12. Anybody shocked at that? Right? But so it varies. So that's a really good question, and it varies. So it can be just trying to get into the door. So there, you do have a process with certain advertisers where it's just difficult to even get to a place where you are able to sit down with them and have a meaningful conversation. So I count that as a contact. But also getting to a place where you are able to propose and present. So anything within that sales contact to proposal process, and then even after that to get to a buy, right? So I'm early in my career in sales, I was working in a local market, and I had a customer that was in this shopping plaza, and so I'm pretty tenacious, and I'm diligent, and I like to make money. So I was just there, and I knew that if I was there were other businesses there, and so they were going to hear from me. I mean, I had to go there every week for this guy, so I was going to go there every week for everyone else. It only takes a couple of minutes to make these calls. So there was one business in this plaza, and so I went there every week, and the guy was a grumpy curmudgeon of a guy. He, I don't know why he was in business. He certainly didn't love it, but, I went in, and he gave me the hand, and he really just didn't even want to talk to me. And one day I walked in the door, so I would take him a newspaper, I'd take him a piece of data, I'd take him a present, I'd just go and stop in, and I'd share a success of another business in the market. And one day I walked in the door and I heard this voice from the back of the room that said, "Oh, for God's sakes, give her an ad. She comes here every week." So was his wife. So now, interestingly enough, this old curmudgeon of a guy who didn't want to talk to me, out of just perseverance and me continuing to try to just bring him stories of success, became a really good customer and was investing several $1,000s a month with me when we stopped working together, when I stopped working that area. But, at the onset, the average salesperson would never think that this gentleman would ever make a move to invest any dollars to grow his business, let alone be a reasonably good volume advertiser. So making that number of calls. Did I answer your question? Okay. You bet. So I have a philosophy around sales, and that's that every sales call counts. So good ones, bad ones, kind of good, kind of bad, they all count. And there are some other folks who train on sales, and they're very specific. They say, you have to do it this way, you have to say it this way, you have to follow this process. They're a bit rigid. I'm rigid on the activity. I think you learn so much from just practical experience and getting out there, and then trying to learn from what worked and what didn't work. And I go back to 80% of sales are made on the 5th to the 12th contact, so you have to get out there and do it. What I hope to accomplish today and share a little bit with you and is some experience from what I've learned and what I have learned from various trainers, what I have learned from being in field, and what I have learned from managing thousands of salespeople. And that is just how to make sales calls a little better, how to become more efficient and more effective in that sales process, how to shorten the sales life cycle, and how to generate revenue more quickly. If you think about yourselves as entrepreneurs, time is your most important asset. If you're investing in salespeople, you need them to ramp up quickly. So there are tactics that you can deploy around a sales process that just help you get beyond the average 5 to 12 calls, to shorten that call span, to be more efficient and more measured through the process so that you can garner success at a greater pace. And I do this with an intentional sales process because it does shorten the call average. It gets you revenue more quickly. It helps you achieve better results. It helps you increase retention. 90% of the work is out there getting the accounts to come on board with you. And so I'm a bit of a stickler around retaining business or taking practices to retain business. You've done all this work to get them. So nurture and love them to keep them, consult them. act with intention towards them so that you can maintain that group of advertisers. Be smart about them, you know, do contract periods with them. And many sellers, we'll talk about this a little bit more this afternoon, but you know, many sellers they're apprehensive about saying things like, yeah, I want to put you on an agreement, or this is the rate, or oh, for heaven's sakes. And so my philosophy in that is we always ask for 12 months, and the worst that they can say is, no, I'll only do 6. Well, okay, that's better than the month that you were going to have had you had not asked for anything, right? So this is a great rate. This rate is an annual investment of X. That's where I always start. So retention, incredibly important. But retention is also a factor of how you manage your customers and whether or not they see success or at least feel that you're invested in their success. And this process also positions you as somebody who's a bit more customer-centric. It positions you to be outcome-focused and differentiates you from other sellers in the marketplace. Also, this sales process will help you manage salespeople, manage the sales process, identify where you are in pipeline and planning, and what you've got to do in the numbers around sales calls to achieve or obtain that revenue goal that you have. But it is incredibly important as well to differentiate yourself from other sellers. So small businesses and local business, so this is one of the things that hyperlocals face, is the average business owner is getting 30 plus calls a month from various sellers and various media. They all sound very similar. So being able to differentiate yourself from the start helps you get to the next phase, which is to get to a needs analysis phase with a customer and ideally be able to go back and propose a solution. And also positioning yourself differently so that you are more invested, you are customer-centric about their business, you are invested in their success and not necessarily just touting that you're this great community news website or topic that they should be investing their dollars around. You know, advertising sales around a small business is really all about them. It has nothing to do with you. You guys know that, right? Okay. So why should they choose you? Let's talk a little bit first about, when I say,
when you say like why should they choose you and being intentional around that, what does that mean and what does that look like?
yeah, so we're going to go through that. So that's an excellent question, and thank you it's a great segue. But why should they choose you really is, how do you position yourself as a seller when you walk into the store or you talk to this business owner that helps them say, yes, I'm going to talk to this person because this person doesn't sound like every other person who walked in my door. So, you know, I make a joke that in sales, I'll be in a business. I was having lunch at this little restaurant in Knoxville with a friend, and this gal came in. I mean, she read sales rep from she walked in the door, and I said, oh, here we go, because it's kind of fun to watch, right? So she's got her big book of foolishness, and she walks up to the counter. There's a guy behind the counter. He's like 12, right? So she opens up her big book and she said, you know, hey, she announces the media she's with, and, you know, hey, I've got some really good specials, and is the manager here? So the 12-year-old, or at least he looks 12, I mean, he's quite young, right? The 12-year-old says, you know, hey, that guy's not here. It's, you know, Jimmy, Joe, or Ray Bob, or whoever it is. And, you know, he's not here. But she proceeds to like sell the 12-year-old to like, who can't make a decision anyway, right? But she's got her sales flyer, so she continues to tell the kid, but she's got this deal and it's a great price, and hey, if this price is too high, she can do better on this. All right, this guy, right? So this, I mean, you know, so of course my friend and I just had a good giggle and said, okay, we're not going to hire that one for anything ever. But, you know, but this is one of those examples of what business owners find when folks come to call on them. So in answer to your question, how do you differentiate yourself so that what you are doing, the position that you take with this business is different than others, so that they actually will decide to talk with you? So we're going to talk a little bit about types of sellers. And I think some of these will actually sound familiar, but I think also some of them don't sound too bad. But let me try it out on you. I've done some scripts here, so let me read them. So this would be the product or feature seller. And I say the product or feature seller is really all about me and my product. So they lead with my product, right? So in this case, this person would say, I'm going to pull this back down. This person would say, you know, Mr. Business Owner, I'm Junebug from hyperlocal.com, and we are focused on local entertainment and events in the area. Our site is poised to be the #1 site in the market as we are the only comprehensive guide around. You are the perfect business for our top sponsorship. It's a great product, and you'll love having your ad in that premium position. What do you think about that? Doesn't sound horrible, but yeah, you know, there's really nothing that's showing any value to the business owner in that approach. But has anybody seen this seller? Has anybody been this seller? I've been this seller before. Yeah, I'm familiar with all of these sellers, by the way. So the price seller obviously leads with cost and highlights the deal. So this sounds like, you know, Mr. Business Owner, I have this new product that I think would be great for you. It's a new advertising opportunity that would give you the opportunity to have your business appear on the front page of my website for $250 a month. What do you think of that one? Right, right. Now, this is often followed by, if $250 is too much, I can offer discounts. I have not been this seller, by the way. Not the discount one. And then the relationship seller. So we talk a lot about building relationships, right? And we say building relationships in sales is very important. I agree with that. Do you all agree with that? The relationship is really important. The challenge with relationship selling is that can't be the only thing that you rely on. There has to be something meaningful. But a relationship seller sounds something like, hey, Joe, it's good to see you. I saw your son Jimmy playing ball last week. He's got some great talent. He get that from you? Hey, I stopped in today because I know you want to be involved in this new ad product we have. It's a good one. You'll like the position, and it's only $250. So I held a spot for you. Anybody use this? Yeah. Yeah. And often with advertisers that we know, our relationship is good enough that we feel like this could be an okay call. Yeah. So it's not horrible, but it's not the best. The challenge with relationship selling, if that's all that you rely on, if there isn't any additional value or it's not meaningful, is that when somebody comes in who does have meaningful advice, who has a very advisory approach, your friend will continue to be your friend, but they'll invest their dollars with somebody who cares about their business. So you'll still have the relationship. You can talk about his kid, but you're not going to get any of his ad budget. So, and that happens. So the thing to really think about here is when you call on any advertiser, you call on any business, that business owner's guard is up here, and your credibility is down here. Now, I think I was in sales for, oh golly, I don't know how many years, and then a sales mentor and a trainer showed me this, and it was like life-changing, and I was like, oh, okay, that's where some of the wheels fall off the cart. So what you're trying to do through this process when you meet this business owner is you're trying to get their guard to come down. And again, you know, your credibility is on the floor. Like, you have no value. So if you come in and you sell at, or your seller comes in and they sell at price, or they try to sell at product, they try to sell at position, it doesn't matter, because that has absolutely no value to this business owner. There's no value at all, no value established. So it doesn't matter if it's $250 or $250,000, there's no value, right? So positioning yourself differently and trying to bring down that guard gets you in front of that business owner, faster, gets that business owner to chat with you. And that's part of differentiating yourself. Why would they choose you, or why would they choose to talk with you? But every seller that walks in the door sounds like one of those other sellers. And then, of course, there's the traditional consultative seller. And I think you have all heard this, which is why I really term this around intentional, is the consultative seller will say things like, hey, Joe, you know, I stopped in today. I mean, I'm doing some work in the area with hyperlocal.com, and I wanted to see if I could spend about 30 minutes with you and learn about your business. Have you all heard that as like this recommended sales thing? What do you think the business owner thinks when they hear that? Yeah, Yeah, and you know what I would think? I'm not going to spend 30 minutes to teach you about my business. If you want to sell me something, you should know about my damn business, right? I mean, you know, but we thought that this was a non-invasive way to approach sales, but the truth is, it's kind of insulting to a business owner. You know, let me take your time. Let me get you to teach me about your business so I can help you. Well, you should know about my business before you walk in the door if you want to help me, right? So, how do we how do we change this and adjust this? Through intentional sellers, ask questions that are very relevant to the business, and I'll show you an example of this. Research the business in advance, and this is really easy to do. This is not something that requires hours of work. Google is a remarkable source. They develop solutions once they've actually met with an advertiser to help them achieve their goals, so they are customer-centric, and they understand how advertising works when it works. So we can talk about that a little bit more, and we talked about that a bit yesterday when we were on the panel. You know, advertising works when it works because it works together as a collective lift. So talking to them about their entire program, asking them what they're doing in all other media sources, is there synergy in messaging, is a great consultative approach that helps them actually get better results when they invest with you. So the intentional seller sounds very different from the start. And there's a theory and a strategy in this that we'll dig into a bit further. But this seller would walk in the door and say something like, "Doctor, my name's Junebug from hyperlocal.com. Hey, I noticed you are now offering microneedling skin treatments. Is that a service only offered to existing patients, or is that something you would offer to new patients as well?" Do you think the doctor is going to answer me? Yeah. And he's probably going to engage. He said, yeah, no, anybody could buy it. Why do you ask? We would take anybody for that. Why do you ask? This trail of questioning allows you to lead down an incredible path, even with a gatekeeper or a receptionist. So if I'm talking to a receptionist and I say, hey, you know, I saw that you're offering microneedling treatments. Is that something that you offer to only your existing patients, or can new patients get that? And if she says, oh, no, we'll take new patients, and I'll say, golly, that's great. So how long does it take to get an appointment to do that? Why do you think I'm asking how long it takes to get an appointment to do that? That's right. Because if I can get an appointment tomorrow, they need me. So it enables you to go down a pathway of questions that are relevant to the business that help you discover whether or not that business has a gap or whether there's opportunity. This is far different than, I've got this product and I want to sell you something that's $250. And hey, you're going to really love it because it's got a great position, or I want to take 30 minutes and learn about your business. The other thing with this is, even though some of these questions, their guard is still high. It's not like just because you asked a question about their business, suddenly you're brilliant and all of their guard goes down. But what it does get is you will get a response in asking questions like this, and it actually lets them know that you do know about their business. You don't need to spend 30 minutes and ask them about it. And the other thing is they are less likely to be kind of rude to you because maybe you're asking for yourself to get a microneedling treatment. Now, you don't want to sort of position yourself like you're buying, but you're asking questions related to what a customer is asking or what somebody might be asking when they go through this process. It makes an enormous difference in whether they will talk with you or not. So let's talk about what the sales process looks like. Has anybody seen a sales process before? Yes.
I've been all of those salespeople at one point or another.
Congratulations.
Full disclosure. In the intentional process, have you ever run into a situation where, like, if I look at that script that you just had on the screen, where not yourself personally, but somebody that you've trained, that the business owner sort of reacts like, wait a minute, I didn't know you were trying to sell me something? It seems like there's like this kind of razor's edge you're walking between being, like, full disclosure, I'm here from hyperlocal.com, and hey, is it hard to get an appointment for microneedling because, oh, you thought I wanted an appointment. No, I want to sell you an ad. I mean, have you ever had anybody that's kind of fallen off the cliff on the other side and had blowback from advertisers on that, or is there Or am I just sort of imagining that could possibly
Well, I
happen?
think if you continue down a path and you weren't authentic or you weren't honest about what you're doing, you could risk that. I haven't had that or haven't had any of the folks I've trained do that, but simply because typically what will happen is you ask a few questions and then the business owner will say, "Why are you asking me this?" And so the transition then from the seller is to say, "Well, I think I might have a few ideas on how you might be able to get a few more of those customers. If I could share that with you, is that something you'd be interested in hearing?"
Because we are all local, hyper-local, we do business with our customers. Do you have like a specific way? I mean, I usually try to find a way to mention I buy my wine here. I get my nails done here.
Yeah.
I shop here. I bought my daughter's prom dress here. Do you have like a specific way to do that it's not like in your face kind of?
Uh-huh. Did you all hear Kelly's question? She said in hyperlocals, you are all doing business with the folks in your markets. And so is there a good way or an easy way she tries to mention that she's getting her nails done, she's buying her dresses, she's shopping for wine or whatever in those shops? So there's a great pathway that I use because trying to follow this sales process is not incredibly difficult, but there are great transitions. So a transition that I use that I think works really well. Hey, I was in here yesterday buying my wine, and it made me start thinking about your business. And I had a couple of questions. I was thinking about your business like a customer, and I had a couple of questions, or I had a couple of ideas I wanted to run by you. This is for somebody that you already know. But I think you can reference that in this line of I was thinking about your business, or I was thinking of, I was thinking a customer who was interested in your business, or I was thinking about your business last night, and I thought, I bet a customer would be interested in or curious about X. So, and you can package that into when I was in here getting my nails done because you were a customer. When I was in here shopping, I started thinking about your business, and I had a few ideas. Right? That's an easy transition, don't you think? Yeah, absolutely. So has everyone seen a sales process before or seen?
I just wonder if you could give us a couple of examples of what you say when you walk in the door for the first time. I mean,
Sure.
You may not be already a customer, so you can't say, I was here yesterday. But, clearly you have to identify yourself as coming from hyperlocal media. How do you do that in an ingratiating way that allows you to get to begin asking the questions that you want to ask?
So I do it, and I think we'll cover a bit more of this as well, but I do it just simply like that example of the intentional seller. I introduce myself. Hi, I'm Eleanor Sipple. I'm with hyperlocal.com. And hey, I noticed that you are offering this good or service. Right? I go right into the relevant and specific question about the business. I try to immediately get past this defensive that goes up when I'm there with some sort of media trying to sell them something and get into a spot that is deliberate about their business and their customers. So I think we can go through that a bit more, and I'll share some transitions and also some other language as well. So the key to all of this is really a sales process. And this sales process, having a sales process and understanding the sales process also helps you manage salespeople because you can find out at what stage in the sales process they've fallen off the track. So if you have a salesperson who's out there who are making a lot of sales and they're not getting any closes, you want to be able to coach to what area in the sales process it actually they hit the constraint, right? But it helps you manage the numbers and we'll talk about this. I know I keep saying this. We'll talk about this a bit more when we talk about managing salespeople. But sales is a formula. It's number of calls that it takes to get to an appointment, or to get in how many calls do you have to make so that you're able to get to a needs analysis, and how many needs analysis does it take for you to get to a point where you can propose a solution, and out of the solutions that you propose, how many do you close? And if you're trying to obtain a revenue goal, it's a mixture of those, right? So you just work that math so that you can back into and understand a goal. Every salesperson has different metrics around that, but a sales process and understanding the sales process helps you with that. The three most important pieces in the sales process are really the first three. And here's why I say this. If you do these first three steps really well, when you are presenting solutions, you are getting lots of nods. And when you go in to get the deal, they're typically with you. So it's far less about they don't know how to close. It's difficult to close a deal, all of those things, because this pre-work, this work that you've done in the first 3 steps positions you to just take it, and they're with you at this point. So I can't stress enough how important these 3 steps are. So for salespeople, when I coach them and there's something that's wrong, I always go back to where they are in the needs analysis. What did we learn? What did we propose? What did they say? Why are they great? And we'll go through that in just a second. So I'm going to spend some time this morning. I think I still have some time, right? Woo, we're in trouble. Okay, so I'm gonna rush through some time this morning to take you through at least some identifying information on these top 3 pieces and give you some tools. You all will have this deck. There's some transitions and some questions in here as well. So let me just speedily get through this then. I also want to say in sales, you do have to find your own voice. And so take whatever tools and tactics that you can get from all of this and then put it into your own swagger and your own style. Sales is something that you can say, well, I heard it say this. I found success in picking up lines and transitions from other people, but you really do have to put it into a package that suits you. But understand the foundation reasoning behind why you're doing what you're doing to get the sales deal closed. Does that make sense? So I put this here because I don't want folks to be overwhelmed at some of the tactics around this. Okay, so research is preparing to learn more about the business. And I recommend doing research before you go into the business. And look, people want to do business with people who understand their business, so this makes sense. And this is not a difficult thing to do the research. So here's simply how I do research. It's incredibly easy. I pull out my tablet and I Google. So I'm calling on a bridal store. How to choose a bridal store. Google will give you the top 10 questions that are out there that you need to ask if you're a bride or you're looking. I look at their website, I look at the ads that they're currently offering, and I formulate questions related to that. So I have an example, so I'm not going to anchor here for a long time. But this is not a difficult process to do. Sales reps will say, well, golly, I've got to do all this research. And, I just call bunk on that. And anytime a salesperson says, I can't do that or that takes too much time, I don't even argue with it. I just go, okay, come on, let's go. And I just do it because it doesn't. It doesn't. Okay. So this research is investigating like you're a customer. So thinking through the lens of a customer or thinking about somebody who's going to make a buying decision. Think about what factors are important to somebody who's making a buying decision. I was on the phone with a friend, and we were talking through the sales process, and I said that I had to have a guy come out and do, I had critters in the house, like I think I had something die in my wall. Anybody ever have that happen? It's horrible. Like there's this smell that's ridiculous. So I had to call people with like business names like critter handlers and, yeah. So I had questions, right? Like I asked questions like, do you guarantee your work? How long will it take? If you find something in my walls, are you drilling through my drywall? Do you patch it? How do I get it repaired? Do you wear a uniform? Do your folks wear a uniform? Are you licensed or insured? Do you come in a marked truck? I'm like at home in the country alone. These are all important questions. So I'm like rattling off all these questions because they were important to me as a customer. And the person I was talking to on the phone just laughed and said, I wouldn't even think to ask those things. But these are things that are important when making a buying decision. And you're ultimately trying to learn how to effectively market their business. And to do that, you need to ask them questions about what is important to a customer. So develop questions from this, and this research that you do, this pre-work, also helps you prepare for this needs analysis. So the reason that you're doing the research in the first place is because you're trying to get to develop a couple of questions that will enable you to sound somewhat educated when you open your conversation or you do your call conversation starter. So you're not saying, Mr. Business Owner, I've got this product that's $250, or I want to talk with you about your kid and how he plays ball, or I've got a sale or whatever, that you're actually asking them a question that's relevant to their business. So this is asking them a question like a customer would, right? Do you offer this service to others? How long does it take to get an appointment? What's the average price on that? Oh, that's really, and then having a conversation. Oh, that's really interesting. And do you offer, or what's the recovery time? Some of those things that are important to potential customers. And all of this conversation is about them and their business. It's not about you. The goal of this conversation is to actually move to a needs analysis and ultimately get an appointment so you can present a solution. So there's a strategy here. It's an intentional sales strategy. And of course, the next piece is the needs analysis. And this is one of those pieces of the sales process that are really important because you can anchor back to here. And this is where you really learn about what's important to customers who are doing business with, who are going to make a buying choice or do business with them. And also what's important to the business themselves, what their needs and objectives are. But you're trying to gain enough knowledge out of this so that you can effectively market their business. So here's the process that I go through. I ask, what do they sell and who do they sell to? So if this were a bridal store, this would be my pre-work. This is a little scratch pad that my sales reps will do, just, doing the exploration. So this dress store, Sydney's Dress Boutique, they sell dresses, formal wear, bridal, wedding party, mother of the bride, prom, special occasion, designer dresses, ball gowns, and accessories. So I say list every profit center that they have. So if they did... just because, and I say list every profit center that they have, and here's specifically why. Has anyone ever called on an auto dealer in the room? So auto dealers make money from selling units, of course, right? But they also make money from financing, and they make money from service. And sometimes those are 3 different budgets, or 2 different budgets. So understanding where they are in the profit centers also helps you ask enough questions that if you get shot down on one, you can move to the next, right? So you're acting intentionally. You're there, you're making a call. Okay, you don't want to talk with me about how you're selling cars. Is your service manager in? Should I talk with him? Because I think I've got some ideas that might be able to help him, and then dig into the service business. Make sense? So I look at every profit center that they might have, every area that in their business that they make money from, and then who do they sell to? So I understand who their customer segment is. And I know this probably sounds very elementary, but it makes a huge difference when you're actually talking to a business owner to at least have this thought process before you go in the door. So in this case, they sell to brides, bridesmaids, mothers, teen girls, women organizing events, parents, etc., right? So then I want to know what's important to somebody who's making a choice. So the list that you see in black, I Googled. How to choose a wedding dress. Everything in black is what Google gave me. What you see in red is how I formulated questions, the questions that I decide to ask. Do we have to go? 5.
I think,
Woo!
and I think
Okay.
we can leave time for two questions maybe.
Okay. No, it's good. Okay, so I'm going to give you 5 minutes, and then we'll wrap this up, and you'll get copies of this as well, okay? Okay. So in all of this, you want to find out what makes them great, what their unique selling proposition is, and you really have to understand why a customer would choose them versus choose another business. And I have actually myself said things like you'll see at the bottom of this. I've said, why would a bride choose you? What makes you the best? What makes you great? So I ask customers these things because this is typically like your headline, right? So you're coming back and you're doing the creative. The words that they give you are the words that you're going to put into the creative campaign and the strategy. So when you're done with the needs analysis, you should know all of these things. Ultimately, you want to know how to market their business, and you want to know if they have capability and capacity for more business. So we said yesterday in our session, are they pitching a sledgehammer to kill a gnat? So if you're talking to an apartment community and they have 1 unit available for rent and it's $2,000 in monthly gap, but you come back and you present a solution that's a huge solution, they really don't have a lot of need, you've just wasted their time and yours, right? Okay, so very quickly, when you're in this process, use expansion questions. Tell me about, walk me through, describe for me, share with me. These are all ways to get business owners to talk. Phrases to use in the process. Summarize and gain agreement. Here's what I heard you say. Let me make sure I understand. You really want to get clarity because you are trying to learn how to market their business. And then seek the advance. With your permission, I'll work on some ideas to help you get closer to whatever number that is, which could potentially mean X amount of dollars in revenue for you. So you've got 20 open apartment units. They're $2,000 a piece. I'm going to try to help you get closer to filling those, right? You with me? Okay. So don't sell them anything through this meeting. Don't interrupt them. Don't speak poorly about the competitor. For God's sakes, don't speak poorly about the competitor. Do you know why I say don't speak poorly about the competitor? Because they've made a buying decision with a competitor if they're in there. So if you speak poorly about that competitor, you're telling them they made a stupid decision. That's really not a way to make a friend, right? You can sell them value in other things. The solution, you're really just going to develop a solution from what you've heard around their objectives. And then in the proposal, you're just going to begin that with stating their objectives and take them through using their words back in their creative and their approach. So you're repeating what you heard as their needs and their objectives and why a customer would choose them in their business. So they're far less likely to say, hey, you don't know what you're talking about, or that's bunk. And when you're presenting, use language that really makes sense to them, not lingo language from digital land, right? And then in this, when you're done, gain agreement with them throughout. When you're talking with them about a solution, does this make sense? Do you think this will work for your business? Right? Talk with them throughout this proposal to gain agreement, so that in the end, all you're saying is, all I need to get this started for you is, I need your authorization here to get this started, or I just need a copy of your logo, or you can assumptively make the close when you're done because you've garnered agreement through the whole process. And use verbal testimonials. People who advertise in this product tell us one feature that is popular is, refer to other business success. It makes a difference. And lastly, follow up and iterate. So you want to make sure that you're setting up the campaign from the start so that you can change and iterate for better results. Change the dang creative. For God's sakes, change the dang creative. It's digital. Creative on digital gets less activity after 2 weeks. So change the dang creative. Don't let it just sit out there in like the abyss of digital boring ads that never change. Remember, the needs analysis never ends. You always want to use the line going back in. I was thinking about your business. Hey, I was thinking about your business through the lens of a customer, etc. All right, 2 questions.
I think we've got time for just 2 quick questions so we can stay somewhat on track today.
Eleanor, could you talk about the pipeline, and is there some number, some way of calculating how many prospects should be in the pipeline at any given time?
Yes, this afternoon. Okay. It's a great question.
That's the way to keep on schedule.
Yeah, but actually we're going to talk about managing salespeople in pipeline as a part of that conversation. It's a great question, Michelle.
Really basic. Do you recommend just going in and talking to people, like if you want to cover a street, or do you recommend calling first to say, I'm going to be nearby?
So I think in hyperlocal, I think this is a really good question. So I think in hyperlocal space, walking in the door is always the best. Being prepared when you walk in the door is better. So mobile device, how to choose, what's important to you when making a decision. So if I pulled into a downtown street, I would look at the businesses on the street. I would quickly use Google to ask those questions. I would be prepared to know a little bit when I walked in the door, and I would walk in and try to talk to a business owner. Now, you're going to hear about this a little bit this afternoon at 12:15 as well. You are hit and miss in that. However, you are able to garner incredible intelligence from walking in the door. So don't bypass that. I mean, really, phone calls and emails, we think that's easy, but it doesn't get you the results that actually making the physical approach in does if you can do it. I've walked in businesses and they've said, oh, well, can you hang on just a second? And I've turned around and seen their entire marketing plan on a whiteboard in the meeting room next to me. That was awesome. And even if the business owner isn't there, you can garner great business intelligence from talking to the salespeople or the people behind the desk. So in person is always best, and then I have a formula that I think is the number that you should use for those. Did I answer your question? Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is going to go on for a long time, but we're going to talk a little bit more about it later.
Should I put this back? I'll put
Yeah.
this back. Sorry to run long.
Oh, it's quite all right. 1 second. A couple of quick reminders while we're letting the video folks get caught up. We do have, again,